He cheated on me with his girl best friend. So today my boyfriend, 20M, confessed to me, 18F, that he had sex with his girl best friend, 21F, 3 days ago. They reconnected about a week ago after he distanced himself from her due to her inability to accept his boundaries. I was very upset about them reconnecting, as I felt like she never respected me or our relationship. She never made any effort to meet me, etc., and also felt like he was keeping us separated on purpose. And told him about this, yet he reconnected with her anyways. This is very shocking news to me, as he was so sweet and got to know my family and acted like he was going to marry me. Now I feel like an idiot because the red flags were so obvious. It's especially hard since I just moved out of town a week ago to start university and was also told 2 weeks ago that I may have a chronic illness, on waiting list to get checked, and he even came with me to the appointment. I honestly don't know what to do. I feel isolated and alone and so shocked. His friends and him are begging me to take him back because he loves me, but honestly, I don't believe he'd do this if he did. Update? So after a long call with him essentially playing the victim and begging for me back, I hung up and blocked him after telling him to go fuck himself. Then I immediately unblocked him, because I wanted him to transfer me back the money back for the expensive stuff I got him for National Boyfriend's Day, and get someone to send me back my things, and when he did both, I told him to fuck off again and blocked him. Then he somehow found a way to contact me on Instagram, and we spoke for a bit until I blocked him for good. Now I've walked away and he's blocked on all socials, and I suddenly feel a heavy weight lifted off my shoulders. He also told me he found this post and is upvoting you guys' comments. I said he was really sweet, but now I honestly should have seen the red flags, and I will elaborate on them down below. At the beginning of our relationship, I had no problem with him having a female best friend. But then he started acting weirdly, which made me dislike her, without even knowing her, but now I know I was right and they're both trash. Firstly, he'd always shit-talk her to me, like, for example, how she would take him to expensive restaurants and he'd have to pay and be embarrassed, and when he told her to stop, she'd say, okay, and then not listen. He also used to say very weird stuff to me, like, she's the girl you should be worried about, and sent me a picture of them which said, looks like we're married, and said they were jokes after. And it all made me very uncomfortable, and it got to the point where I felt really insecure and brought it up to him, and he stopped and apologized. But he kept doing stupid shit, like on his birthday she posted a picture of them cuddling they took before we started dating, which he reposted on his story and right after the picture of us, and did not listen when I was clearly upset about it and didn't want to take it down to not hurt her feelings as she already saw it. I got so mad at him in front of his friends, and they honestly thought I was the crazy one. Guess I wasn't just paranoid and insecure after all. He also had both me and her as his lock screen, which I found weird and uncomfortable, but thought it'd be toxic and controlling to say anything. Even told me how she said how he put all the best pictures of me and not of her, which I found really weird. He only removed her once someone asked if she was his girlfriend. Just remembered he made so many excuses as to why I couldn't meet her from one. I don't want the most important women in my life to meet because they could band together against me and two. She doesn't like meeting people because she's awkward, only for me to find out she'd met all his other friends. Eventually, he cut her off after she'd call him in the middle of the night to pick her up, and I told him how uncomfortable it made me, to which he told her to stop, but, according to him, she got very defensive and angry about that. But then he reconnected with her, which I was literally crying on the phone, with him telling him about how he'll just enter a toxic cycle with her again, and I didn't want to see him get hurt again and also feel like I'm sharing my boyfriend again. But he did not listen and connected again with her, completely disregarding my feelings, saying he cared for her like a sister, and that I was the most important woman in his life, and naively, I believed him. Even in our wider relationship, he was very manipulative. Just to name a few, whenever I was upset with him, he'd basically bring up how he's struggling mentally and financially, and I'd feel bad and drop it. He recently got diagnosed with ADHD, so now, anytime he'd do anything wrong, he'd blame it on that. Whenever we'd argue, he'd blame me and say it's because I was too argumentative and he didn't like arguing. To be honest, even the start of our relationship was a red flag because he didn't want to date me because I was underage and thought his friends would judge him. He was 19 and I was 17 at the time, so legal age of consent in my country but still considered underage, but was perfectly okay with sending me sexual messages. I was in a very vulnerable space when I met him, as I'd just been ghosted by a close friend who bombed me, and was honestly seeking anyone to show me love. Learned from my mistakes now and will definitely be focusing on loving myself and making sure I'm healed both mentally and physically before I start any romantic interaction with anyone. He's done even worse things, TBH. Some are too personal to share online. Overall, I honestly think he resented me because I am at one of the top 3 universities in the world, and he probably thought I'd meet someone better and wanted to feel some form of control by going for a girl who wanted him, and also manipulating me while I felt alone and vulnerable so I'd stay with him during university.